Hello. This is Fugly here. Um, the absolute most incredible thing happened. Just got a content ban for hate speech. On a satirical video called "White People Can't Panel Beat," which was clearly indicated that the word panel beat meant think. It was clearly indicated that it was satire. It was clearly indicated, if you watch the video, that it was a fake interaction between a racist interviewer of a honky from Canada who was portrayed as another Terence from Canada video, which, if you look at the playlist, there is a whole playlist of Terence from Canada videos. You'd also know that Terence is a South Park character as well, if you actually know your culture. And the objective was clear. If you're familiar with the history of media and also saw a post on Fugly that came from ABC Library stuff, ABC being the Australian ABC channel history stuff, clearly showed that when it said for Neil and Margaret as well in the comments, Neil deGrasse Tyson and Margaret Allen, the academic. Okay, so if you don't understand what's behind that, okay, Margaret Allen and Neil deGrasse Tyson, okay, represent historically in two different countries a situation where people with dark skin were becoming classified as experts rather than they're there, go back to the ghetto, okay? No, really. They're there, go back to the mission, go back to the ghetto, there was how it used to be, okay? And then a change sort of happened in the 60s and 70s, where you get like Dr. Martin Luther King, and then eventually you get Dr. deGrasse Tyson in the United States. And in Australia, in 1975, you had Margaret Allen. Sorry, hearing's not so good. If that's not the correct way to say her last name, it sounded like Allen in the video, okay? Anyway, the way that they spoke to her didn't feel respectful from a 21st century perspective. Although it's perfectly acceptable to ask what someone's opinions are, it is nice to ask people what they might think as a cultural perspective or whatever. It seemed really fucking racist for some reason that the first time a black woman in Australia became an academic, they made a big deal about how she was a black woman instead of how she was an academic. Okay, there is a double standard going on there. They didn't clarify what Margaret's qualifications were. She could have been an accountant. If she was a social scientist, then okay, that kind of makes sense. But they presented her as the black woman that went to uni, okay, right? Which, by the way, given the historical circumstances, was an achievement back then for women, and in particular, black women, okay, in that time and place in Australian history, okay? So we're not denying here that she accomplished something. We're not even denying her expertise. What we're saying is that the media racialised, and this is a different treatment for how they treated Dr. deGrasse Tyson shortly after, a couple of years after, in a different country, okay? So Dr. Neil deGrasse Tyson, he has a short video on his channel called Star Talk, where he talks about how he had an out-of-body experience when he first saw himself on TV, because he was like a postdoctoral student or something like that at the time. He was an academic, but he wasn't high rank yet, okay, and still reasonably young, and he was at the university, and he gets, in the short he says, encourage you to go and look at it so you get your primary sources. And in the short, he says he got a phone call at the uni one day and looking for someone who knew what a solar flare was and he was going to kill everyone. And Neil happened to be the academic that picked up the telephone from the TV station and said, "Oh yeah, he'll do an interview with you if you want. Sure, let you know what that actually means, because being an astrophysicist, he kind of knows stuff like that, right?" And so apparently he got picked up in a car and taken to the studio. He did the interview, let them know what he thought about solar flares and whatever else, and then he went home and he went, "Oh, he's going to be on the TV." And then he went and looked on the TV and he realised, as he was watching himself in his first television interview, this is what he says in his short, that he actually was the first person he had ever seen on American TV that was just there to give his expertise. That's all he did, and not once did they make it about him being a black man. And he had an out-of-body experience. He went, he wasn't racialized. He wasn't racialized in that moment, and he hadn't seen that on American TV before. Okay? The purpose of that video, was called "White Man Can't Panel Beat," was to do a satirical parody of a situation where Terence from Canada is acting as a representative of the white race, of the first person ever in Canada who was from the white race to get a graduate diploma in panel beating. Okay? With a racist interviewer making fun of Terence of Canada about how he should have known what panel beating was because, you've driven a car before, you dumb cunt, type of thing, you stupid honky type of thing. And Terence from Canada is supposedly all excited because they're a representative for their race because they have discovered what panel beating was. And although they did lots of panel beating before it was substandard, okay, it was a sarcastic video because in the satire, the word panel beat is a replacement for think. The point being made was not hate speech against black people. The point being was to stand up for black people and to say that they were thinking before they got academic degrees. Okay? They were intelligent before they got academic degrees. They weren't fucking stupid. It was attempted at role reversal. And what all YouTubers done here is prove that they can't handle a situation where the shoe's on the other foot and the white man is portrayed that way. Okay? They can't handle a situation or the idea where a white man could possibly ever be in the situation that black people were in the 60s and 70s. Where, oh my God, black people aren't stupid. One of them went to uni. Are you fucking dumb? They weren't stupid to begin with. Just the same as white people, okay? Intelligence, and this is something that anyone with a psych degree can tell you, intelligence is not about whether or not you got a university degree. There's a shit ton of types of intelligence. It's called Gardner's theories of intelligences, okay? Not all of them can be measured with psychometry in a lab. So if you're good at kinesthetic stuff, like sports or something like that, that's a type of intelligence too, okay? Okay? It's not to say that Dr. deGrasse Tyson or Margaret, and again, we don't know if her title was doctor at the time. Apologies if it was. Okay, to hear stories from Dr. deGrasse Tyson and Whoopi Goldberg, for example, about how they were shocked to see a dark-skinned person not racialised or presented as a slave on American TV for the first time. In the case of Whoopi Goldberg, it was when they saw Nichelle Nichols. Okay, and after that, Whoopi Goldberg said that she became a massive Star Trek fan, and so when she had the opportunity to play Guinan, she was absolutely stoked, apparently. Okay, fair enough. Okay, they hadn't seen that before. They were being presented everywhere as damn slaves. Okay, when they were nothing of the fucking sort. Oh, Dr. Martin Luther King comes along and suddenly, oh, they're not anymore. Dr. Martin Luther King was a Nichelle Nichols fan as well. Okay, Neil deGrasse Tyson would have seen Nichelle Nichols and Dr. Martin Luther King. Okay? People use body language and saying they're damn slaves. It's because that's how the white man was treating them. That's how the white man was treating Aboriginal women in Australia as well. And sorry, if you can't handle a person from Australia, a female face, pretending to be Terrence from Canada, a cartoon character, being satirising and being satirised as being the first white person to get a graduate diploma in panel beating because white people must have been stupid before they got that. They didn't know how to drive a car. They didn't know how to think. Okay? If YouTube can't handle the shoe being on the other foot to show a satire and parody just how racist that fucking was, then they can get stuffed. They can get stuffed. That was not to say that white people were stupid before they got certificates in paddle beating. That was not to say that black people were stupid before they got academic degrees. It's to say that they weren't, that they were in fact intelligent, and that the media had misportrayed them. And now here we are at the media again. And the YouTube can't handle the idea of one woman standing up for another. And the irony of the situation is in that particular video from 1975, one of the actual questions they're asking, Margaret, is there any solidarity between the white woman feminists and the black women feminists? And basically, there wasn't. Now here, are you going to presume this is a white face? Because, to be fair, mostly it is, but not exclusively ancestrally. So are you going to take away your fucking assumptions, please? Are you going to take away your fucking assumptions, please? This was an attempt by a graduate from a university to stand up and say that she should not have been treated that way. Unless she agreed to it. Now, if Margaret agreed to that, if she was comfortable with that, then that's her business. That's her prerogative. But historically, in context, it looked like she was being racialised. She was being treated as a black woman rather than an expert. Oh, a black woman suddenly got a degree, did they? Look, she was the first in Australian history. Okay, that's nice. We're glad she did. We're not complaining that she didn't. She's a trendsetter for everyone else that's come since. Okay, good on her. Same time, though, is she wasn't being treated fully as an expert independently of her gender and her ethnicity. Okay? When you're an expert in something, like Neil deGrasse Tyson was in astrophysics, it stands alone from how you appear as a person. Science and your appearance are not the same thing. Okay? And she was an academic. Margaret was an academic. And that means her knowledge stands alone independently. Unless you were talking about her personal opinions and how that can help shape the discussion in Australian society about what certain things mean, like how she was affected as a woman, how she was affected as an Aboriginal woman. Okay? Why didn't they ask her the name of her tribe? They wanted to make it about her Aboriginality. Why didn't they ask her the name of her tribe? Okay? They asked her to be a representative effectively in a situation when it might not have been law to do so. They put her in an uncomfortable position. Okay? She, in that moment, if you're asking for her academic expertise, sure, someone like that, of course, write 1,000 books. We need your opinions. We need your opinions then, and we need them now. Okay? Perhaps even more than ever. Okay? Okay? How come Neil even felt like he had an out-of-body experience? Doesn't that tell you something? What if Margaret just gave a professional opinion on something and didn't make it, take a racialiser? Okay? Unless the opinion is about how race and gender intersect, which in that case it did, okay? But did they specify? They don't even record on specifying what her expertise was. Is that memory impairment for 2 days? Maybe. I'll go check it in a minute. Okay, that's belittling. Okay, there's nothing wrong with being an Aboriginal academic. There's nothing wrong with being an African American academic. There's not even anything wrong with being a trendsetter. There's not even being wrong about your expertise, or ask your expertise about how it might personally affect you as well. Okay, it was done respectfully. Okay. Do you think maybe it's a bit of pressure on the Neil deGrasse Tysons and the Margarets of the world, okay, that they are expected to represent their race? You don't treat white people the same way in the media. You don't. Never, ever seen Carl Sagan asked how he felt as a white man about black holes. Never, ever seen, Germaine Greer. Okay, we'll talk about feminism in Australia in the 70s. What about Germaine Greer from Melbourne? Have you got any interviews, ABC, of Germaine Greer? And whether or not her role as one of the first white women to get a sociology degree in Australia affected her opinions on feminism. Why is it white woman's feminism and whether or not there's black and white solidarity? No, wait, they don't say white woman's feminism. It's just called feminism. Okay? But it's called intersectional feminism when you put black at the front of it. Or Asian or something. That's racist. You could deal with the intersections of history and how that's affected people. That's fucking fair. But if it really is feminism, it shouldn't. And you want to be equal about it. Say it's white feminism. Go on. Why wasn't Germaine Greer? Why didn't they make a big deal about her being one of the first white woman academics in Australia? Go on. At the same time, no less. But for Margaret, it's a big deal that she was Aboriginal. Sorry, but at that time in history, it was a big deal for any woman to be an academic. And to be fair, it's an even bigger deal that an Aboriginal lady did at the time, considering they had even more disadvantage than a white woman. Okay? Nonetheless, for any woman to have been an academic in the 1970s was a big fucking deal. So, why didn't they ask Germaine Greer about her whiteness? Or did they? Germaine Greer, are you Terence from Canada? Are you a little bit upset about that, maybe? Yeah, you know what? Not only white people can't panel beat, as in think, but they can't figure out what hate speech fucking is. For fuck's sake. They're just people.